Maya was just a 17-year-old girl, waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. Nobody expected that simple walk to turn into a life-or-death fight, but it did. Her dad, David, saw her and decided she was trying to sneak out. He started yelling, then charging. He didn't just argue, he put his hands around her neck. Her mother, Sarah, had to pull him off, finally forcing a family secret out of the shadows. It was 2 a.m., deep in the night when the world is quietest. Maya pushed herself up in the dark. She wore just a simple t-shirt, shorts, and a bonnet. No one getting ready to run wears a bonnet. She was half asleep, heavy with the comfort of her bed, needing only a quick trip down the hallway. That hallway, though, held the beginning of their nightmare. But when her father, David, saw her, the quiet broke. His eyes narrowed instantly, filled with sudden, cold suspicion. He took one look at his 17-year-old daughter and decided, without asking, that she was trying to sneak out again. She hadn't done that since she was 15. Those clothes should have told him the truth. David didn't care about the truth. He only cared about his anger. That feeling of being challenged always flared up in him, a quick, destructive heat that left broken things behind. He saw betrayal where there was only a teenage girl needing a bathroom. It didn't matter that the key symbol, their front door, was still locked from the inside. He had already chosen his narrative. David didn't wait for an answer. He started yelling right away, his voice loud and sharp like a crack in the silence. It was full of accusation, demanding a confession that Maya couldn't give. Maya tried to argue back, tried to make him see the facts, but with every word, the volume just kept rising on both sides. They were trapped in a loud argument that was really only about his need for control. The noise pulled them further and further away from reason. David was not listening. He was just feeding the rage that always led to the moment when he would try to make everyone act like nothing happened. Then, David did the thing that always took the fight to the next level. He got up out of his chair. He walked across the room and stood right over Maya. His shadow covered her. She felt the hallway space shrink to nothing, the tension pressing in on her chest. All she wanted was to escape that feeling. Maya turned quickly and went into the bathroom, trying to use the flimsy door as a physical barrier. She needed anything to put between her body and his escalating rage. Her heart was beating fast, knowing the flimsy door wouldn't hold the danger that had finally stood up.
It did not hold. David followed her and slammed the door with a loud, terrible crash. Then the fight became physical, a battle for space. They started pulling that door back and forth, a violent, desperate tug of war fought over the doorknob. It was metal and hard and cold. Each pull was a shock of adrenaline and rage. Maya was holding on for safety. David was pulling to win, to show his absolute power. This struggle did not calm him down. It only fueled the dark, hot anger inside him, making it wilder, louder, and much more dangerous. He was past the point of turning back. Then the pulling stopped. There was a sudden, terrible pause, heavier than the struggle itself. David wasn't interested in the door anymore. He didn't just push, he charged at her, a terrifying blur of motion and anger. Maya didn't have time to flinch or scream. 1 second, she was fighting for the door. The next, his hands, both of them, were around her throat. He was choking her. All the air left her lungs in a fast, desperate whoosh. This wasn't anger over a late night. This was pure, unmasked violence. Fear became a physical thing, squeezing the life out of her. A noise finally cut through the silence. It was Sarah, Maya's heavily pregnant mother. She had rushed out of the bedroom, seeing the unbelievable truth of what was happening. Despite her size, despite the new life she carried, she threw herself into the fight. Sarah had to use every bit of her strength, a sudden desperate surge to physically pull David off of his own daughter. Her intervention was a painful break from the family silence she had kept for years. In that moment, she stopped being the enabler and became the protector. The rage was too much even for him to ignore her. The second Sarah tore David's hands away, they didn't look back. They ran. Mother and daughter scrambled into Maya's room and slammed the door shut. The loud click of the lock turning was the only promise of safety they had. They stood against the door, leaning into the thin wood, breathing fast and uneven, shaking all over. They could hear David immediately on the other side, rattling the doorknob, trying to break through that small barrier. That simple knob was now the only thing standing between them and the full force of his unpredictable rage. Still standing in the dark, pressed against the door while the doorknob rattled violently, Sarah and Maya knew they couldn't wait for his rage to burn itself out this time. This was different. This was a line crossed. They pulled out their phones. In the dim light of the screens, with David's shouts muffled by the wood, they called the police. Maya watched her mother speak the terrible words that finally broke their family silence forever. They were no longer just running. They were asking the outside world to step in, choosing their safety over the deep, toxic pressure to keep family matters hidden.
David must have heard the far-off wail of the sirens. That sound, the noise of the law approaching, broke his frenzy faster than anything Sarah or Maya could have done. He stopped rattling the doorknob instantly. Instead of smashing the door down, he turned and ran out the front door. He moved quickly, beating the police to the scene. He told them a smooth, fast story, a clean lie about Maya trying to sneak out, making himself look like the responsible parent, not the attacker. Even as he was running away, David was preparing to try and make everyone act like nothing happened. He was always trying to control the truth. The house fell into a quiet that was worse than the yelling. The police sirens faded into the distance, taking David with them. Maya and Sarah unlocked the door, stepping out into a home that now felt wrong. The air was cold, mixing the smell of cold night air with fear. They were physically safe now, but the empty space where David had stood felt huge and terrifying. A new silence settled over everything. It was the silence of a truth exposed, a secret finally made public. They had broken the rule of keeping family business inside, and now they waited for the community to react. News traveled fast, and soon the awful reality hit them. David was arrested. The charges were serious, not just a slap on the wrist. When Maya heard the possible sentence, the full weight of it crushed her. Up to 10 years in prison for her father. It wasn't just a simple, loud family fight anymore. It was criminal. This was a consequence that could not be swept away or forgotten, no matter how hard David might try to make everyone act like nothing happened. The legal system had stepped in, and the stakes were higher than anyone in that house had ever faced before. But for Maya, the choking was only the latest incident in a long, painful story. This kind of sudden, out-of-control fury was not new. It was a pattern, a dark thread woven into their family life. She remembered a time when she was younger, not long after her first bike accident. David had screamed until he was purple, then ripped her bedroom door right off its tracks. Why? Because she had put too much paprika in his shrimp. It was always an impossible reaction to a small, simple thing. The severity of the violence never matched the cause, showing the terrifying truth of his unchecked rage. Maya knew she wasn't the only target of his rage. Her younger brother Leo also had his scars, his quiet moments of fear. David's anger was indiscriminate. It hit anyone who got too close. Maya remembered the chilling moment when David had thrown Leo hard into a wall during a simple argument. That memory was a sharp physical pain. This proved the truth. The violence wasn't personal against Maya. It was a storm that lived inside David, always looking for someone to break. The threat was always there, hanging over their house, waiting for its next explosion.
David's violence wasn't just a house secret either. Maya could never forget the time he lost control completely in public. It was over a stupid argument at a gas station. David went past yelling and hit the 19-year-old attendant on the head with the cash register. It showed everyone that his storm didn't stay locked inside their house. It didn't care about their community or the law or the consequences. It just exploded. These memories, the paprika, the wall, the gas station, told Maya that the recent choking was just another beat in a long, terrible song that had to be silenced.
The truly terrifying thing was what followed the rage. After every single violent outburst, the ripped-off door, the throw against the wall, the strike at the attendant, even this most recent choking, David would come back and behave exactly the same way. He would walk back into the house and, quote, act like nothing happened. He never apologized. He just erased the violence from his mind and expected everyone else to do the same. This denial was another kind of violence, a silent pressure on Maya and Sarah to pretend the terror wasn't real. It meant the rage was always ready to strike again because no one had ever made him own his actions. Here was the deepest pain for Maya. She felt a crushing conflict inside her chest. The man who had put his hands on her neck was also the man she loved. He was her father, the one who was also sometimes kind. She couldn't simply hate him. But those moments of rage, those bursts of uncontrollable violence were terrifying. They were life-threatening. She felt torn between the daughter who wanted her father back and the young woman who was fighting simply to be safe. It was a cruel kind of love, poisoned by the fear that hung in the air after the smell of cold night air mixing with fear had finally left the room. The fear was real, but so was the guilt. When Maya looked at the maximum sentence, 10 years, in prison for David, she felt sick. That was too long. She started making deals in her mind, compromises to soothe the pain. She told herself that 30 days in jail maybe, plus some anger management classes, that seemed right. She didn't want his life to end. She just wanted the violence to stop forever. This internal struggle was the weight of expectation hitting her first. The culture of protecting the family was whispering that she should seek a lighter punishment, that she should still try to save her father from himself. But there was no time for gentle compromises. From jail, David started reaching out. He didn't apologize to Sarah, not for the fight, not for the choking, not for anything. Instead, he started putting intense pressure on her. His messages were demands. She had to get Maya to drop the charges right now. He was back to controlling them, trying to force them to continue to act like nothing happened. He wasn't worried about them. He was only worried about his own freedom. He was counting on the weight of expectation to make his family choose silence and protect his name.
Then David started to twist the story, building his defense. He claimed to Sarah that Maya had actually punched him first. He insisted, completely ignoring the truth, that he never choked his daughter. Instead, he said he was the victim and he only reacted to stop her. He was twisting the entire event, trying to turn the terror she felt into a lie of self-defense. This new lie was his final attempt at control, making himself the suffering father who was only trying to restrain his wild child. He was trying to plant a seed of doubt in their minds about the very real fear they had felt. Sarah knew, down to her bones, that his new story was a lie. She was the one who had physically torn his hands off her daughter's neck. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. But David's steady, cold pressure, coming in through the phone messages, felt like another form of attack. He was using the weight of expectation, that old family command to protect the man, to control her, even from behind bars. His voice, the only text on a screen, demanded that she betray her daughter. Sarah had pulled his hands off Maya, but now he was trying to choke the truth out of her heart. With her own family pressing her to lie, Maya did something new. She took her story to the online world. She shared the raw truth of the attack, the terror, and the guilt she felt over the jail sentence. What came back was a surprise. She was flooded with support, with a wave of love from thousands of strangers. It was overwhelming. All that kindness felt like the whole world was giving her strength, a clear voice telling her she was right to choose safety. This outside affirmation was an important shield against the heavy weight of expectation her father and his side of the family were using to try and break her spirit. This family silence was an old custom, not just David's private demand. Maya suddenly remembered her uncle, Mark. He had attacked his baby mother a few years ago. And what happened then? David's entire side of the family had swooped in and forced the woman to sign legal papers, making her drop the charges. They protected their own. This memory explained the chilling weight of expectation they were placing on Maya. They weren't asking her to lie. They were demanding that she follow a family law, protect the man, keep the secrets, and act like nothing happened. She realized she was fighting more than just her father's rage. Now the pattern was completely clear. Maya recognized the old playbook. First the violence, then the denial, and now the heavy-handed pressure from the whole family. They were trying to achieve the exact same result they got with Uncle Mark's victim, force her to silence her own pain. David's family expected her to fold under the weight of expectation to protect his freedom and his name above her own safety. But seeing the full, ugly history of it all gave Maya a quiet strength. She knew the game they were playing, and knowing the game was the first step to finally refusing to play it.
All the pieces clicked into place. The choking, the pressure, the story of Uncle Mark, it all pointed to one terrifying future if she gave in. In that quiet moment of realization, Maya made a firm decision. A choice that cut through the fear and the guilt. She told herself she was going to proceed with the charges no matter what happened next. She looked at her heavily pregnant mother, then thought of her little sibling yet to come. She could not allow this darkness, this constant fear, to touch that new life. The cycle had to stop with her. She was choosing safety and truth over the weight of expectation from her father's side. Even as Maya stood firm, the final proof of David's plan arrived. Sarah finally showed her the text, the angry, demanding messages he had been sending her from jail. Reading them was a shock. It wasn't just simple pressure. It was a new level of cold, clear manipulation. David didn't just want the charges dropped, he wanted a whole new lie built to save himself. Seeing his words, written in black and white, made the truth undeniable. This wasn't a regretful father. This was a man whose only goal was to force his family to help him act like nothing happened. The words on the screen were a clear instruction for betrayal. David told Sarah exactly what he wanted Maya to do. She had to call the judge herself and say, "I swung on him, and that I'm sorry for hitting my dad like that." It was a perfect lie designed to destroy Maya's truth and save his own skin. This wasn't just gaslighting. It was the construction of a public lie that would follow her forever. David was demanding a formal apology for being choked. The full, cold selfishness of the man they had protected for so long was finally laid bare by his own messages. David was not leaving anything to chance. He was fabricating a clear, calculated story to tell the court. He insisted that Maya had swung at him first, violently. He wanted it established that he was simply a parent trying to protect himself and stop the fight, so he only restrained her. He was painting himself as a victim, a man forced to defend himself against his out-of-control daughter. This lie was designed to make the judge dismiss the charges and force them all to go back home, where he would once again expect them to act like nothing happened. He planned to erase the truth entirely. But then came the cruelest blow. David added a final, tiny detail to his lie. He said when he let go, Maya wasn't gagging or coughing. It was a small thing, a physical challenge to her memory, but it was powerful. Maya had been so scared. Everything had happened so fast that she started to seriously doubt herself. She stared into the dark. Was that part true? Did she really cough? The gaslighting had worked its way into her mind. Even after all the terror and all her new resolve, the man who wanted her to act like nothing happened was still trying to twist her truth.
Suddenly, a cold, hard clarity washed over Maya. She realized the true purpose of that small, tiny lie. He was trying to confuse them both, not just the court. He wasn't giving facts. He was gaslighting them. He was making them question the clear, terrible reality of the attack. By creating these little doubts, he hoped to break their witness and make them drop the case out of sheer confusion. David wanted them to believe their fear wasn't real, so they would stop fighting. It was the same tactic he had used for years, the constant expectation to act like nothing happened. only now it was being used as a weapon in court. With the truth of his manipulation clear, Maya forced herself to think back, deep into that moment of fear. She pushed past the confusion. She thought hard about the seconds before the attack. There was the yelling, yes, and the desperate tug of war for the doorknob. She didn't remember any talking before that fight. She knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had never swung at him. She only remembered the fight for the door and then the terrifying motion of him rushing her. Her memory was now confirmed, a solid wall against David's twisting lies. The gaslighting failed, and the truth stood strong. Reading those cold, selfish messages finally broke the spell for Sarah. She had endured years of his behavior, of his insistence they all act like nothing happened. Now, seeing the proof that David cared only about fabricating a lie for court, not about his family, she exploded. Her own rage, years in the making, finally came out. She didn't send a pleading reply. She cussed him out in a final, fiery message. It was a complete rejection of the man and the lie he was trying to build. Her heart now matched Maya's resolve. The anger mother was gone. Only the fierce protector remained. The angry messages, full of lies, ironically became the strongest truth they had. Sarah's final moment of rage unified the women completely. Mother and daughter now stood together, completely clear on what they had to do. They were a united front, ready to face the world and their own family's pressure. The old rule, the weight of expectation to protect David, was broken. They were finally preparing to walk a new path, a dangerous path that meant facing the court and fighting their own blood. The cycle of fear had ended in that house, replaced by a quiet, fierce resolve they had never known before. Maya looked over at her mother, Sarah's belly round with a new life waiting to arrive. It made her firm decision feel absolutely right, heavier than just her own safety. Her choice to press charges was not just about the terror she had lived through. It was about making sure that the baby soon to arrive would never have to grow up under the shadow of David's unpredictable rage. This child would not be thrown against a wall or choked for a small mistake. Maya was committed to stopping the family cycle for the sake of her future sibling. She carried the weight of that responsibility like a powerful new strength. So here was the final, hard truth of the matter. The destructive cycle of violence and denial that had controlled this family for years was finally facing its biggest challenge. It was not a police officer or a judge. It was a 17-year-old girl named Maya. She looked at the closed door, no longer afraid of the rattling doorknob on the other side. She chose the truth. She chose safety. She refused to give in to the family's weight of expectation that demanded she act like nothing happened. Maya stood her ground, a single figure of quiet courage, ready to fight for a new peaceful future for her entire broken home.